Hey y'all, this is your girl Nadia.
And it's me, Coach T.
And we are two average people.
Yes, we are. And today we're going to be doing another reaction video for you today. And I think this is going to be a real good one, so let's just check it out.
I was dating this girl, the love of my life, and she was a heart-based person, but I didn't know then what I know now. One day she meets a family member of mine that she had seen out and about, flirting around. So when we get home, she says to me, "Oh my God, you didn't tell me that he was married." Now, pay attention to my facial expression and my tone of voice. I said to her, "Why would I?" Now, I'm not going to present my defense in this video. I'm not going to present any defense at all. I'm going to explain to you what she felt from her perspective because an argument ensued right after that. She said, "Don't talk to me that way." And I said, "What way?" "I'm not talking to you any kind of way. I'll just ask you a question, a logical question." And she said, "See, no, And we proceeded to have this back and forth. She escalated. I escalated. I'm confused, but I'm not paying attention to what she's saying. So then she throws into the argument other things that I think are not related to the argument at all, which feels stupid and incoherent to me. And so I take on that tone and I begin to argue the logic with the same tone. And that's where I went wrong. Now is not a good time to argue the point because I'm missing how she's expressing her feelings. She's saying, "The way you responded to me did not feel good, Mario." And if I would have caught that when she expressed it, rather than switching and arguing and digging my heels in and defending the point, then I could have saved us an eventual breakup. Because a lot of our interactions was this way. I'm easygoing, I'm chill, but none of that matters if the way that I speak to her don't feel good. What I should have done was switched it up entirely. I should have switched it up entirely like, "Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I didn't mean to say it like that to make you feel like I'm talking down to you. I hear what you're saying, that when I speak to you like that, it feels like I'm being condescending. Whether I am or not, that's what it feels like. And so I'm gonna work on that because I don't ever want you to feel like I'm talking down to you." And at that point, I should have let it breathe. That way she can feel understood again. You see what I mean? Because the whole thing that set the whole thing off was not my logic. It was not my point. It was the face I made and the condescending tone I used. And because she was a feeler, she was sensitive to both of those. Now, I'm not saying we should live our lives walking on eggshells, but what I am saying is that was my partner. She was my love. And for that reason, I can make the sacrifice to understand her, to give her time to process her way, and then she gonna catch up to me, and then we cool.
I think his point is very valid, but I think in order to understand what he's saying, you have to be willing to take a seat back and just do some real listening, which is really, really hard because a lot of the time you feel like, yeah, but I have a point too. Yeah. I have things to say.
That's true.
I didn't say it any kind of way. That's just the way you felt it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's tough because in his mind, he's no more or less valid than what in his story she was feeling.
Right.
She was feeling not heard, not understood, and I'm sure in the moment kind of tolerated versus, like I said, understood. But in his moment, in the same moment for him, his perspective, he doesn't feel any less confused because the situations had nothing to do with him. Why would he just randomly tell you? For him, this whole thing felt extremely random.
Right.
And I know for me, I think he talks about heart versus head.
I was interested more about the heart versus head.
Well, based
type.
on what he's talking about, I can see that for me, I'm kind of a head type. So for me, I would be just as confused in that moment.
Wait, hold on, baby. But people don't know what we're talking about when we say head and heart type. Why don't we?
But the truth is, we don't really know either. We should probably just get that information from the source.
Let's just ask him.
All right, let's just ask.
All right.
Okay, so I live in Evansville, Indiana, Midwest, Alabama born. Kind of split my life between these two places. The way we ended up in the Midwest was my dad was very unfaithful. My stepdad was very unfaithful. He came here to start a business. I came home from school one day. My mom says, "You got 2 hours to say goodbye to your friends." And we left that day. And on the way out of town, I had 20 minutes to meet my biological father.
Oh.
who lived right down the street and I never knew all those years. So like that's how I kind of got here. And then that kind of moment kind of sat with me for a while. I was always a thoughtful person, and I just kind of set out to kind of better understand people and their communication things. That kind of set me on my path to figure out how I want to help people navigate the different psychology, psyche schemas that people adapt. And I never went to college for it because I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do with it. But that's one thing that's on my plate right now. And I really just sat back and read books for 10 years, just study after study. The Enneagram was a big part of it. And then a lot of psychological works that kind of delved off into that. So there were some people who did some overlap between psychological principles and how those fit into the Enneagram. And all that stuff made just one big goulash and kind of led me to uh, the philosophy that I adopted in these last few years.
Wow, that's a powerful story.
That is a powerful story.
A lot, ain't it? Yeah. So
Can you just break down, the head, heart, gut philosophy as you know it? I mean, I know you teach a lot on TikTok, which we're also gonna make sure is linked down in the description down below. But I really want to get a breakdown from the most basic components of how they work individually and how they kind of work together.
absolutely, being concise is something I'm working on right now. It's I gotta get better at that. But the principles I borrow from the Bible, and I also borrow from the Enneagram, and it goes like this: we all have three different centers, right? Each person has all centers, right? And so that means that we are all able to respond from any one of those centers at any given time. But as we go through life and we begin to experience it, right, we become naturally programmed to favor one over the other. And this is where we start developing our personality. And it happens at a rather young age. You can see it in children. Those kind of things happen in our formative years. And you begin to rely on one center or the other. So the mind center is obviously rooted in thought, right? And people usually end up in the mind center when they figure out, or when they begin to experience the world and they become afraid of the unknowns. They kind of go down a path to figuring out or thinking that they'll be safer if I know. The heart types are energy, 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 energy. The way something looks on the outside, the way they perceive it, that helps them process their feelings. They're looking for warmth or coldness and things like that. And then the gut center is more, I'm going to say animalistic in nature, like how animals just have natural born instincts. They can weigh between the two. It doesn't mean that they're better than the others, but they're just more naturally in tune with their body, and they can push their body into action really quick. Is that a good enough summary?
That's a fantastic summary.
So for someone who's unsure of which one they are, is there like a formula, a questionnaire, something to help them kind of figure out which it would be?
Yeah, one of my favorite tests, and this is again, a lot of things I use is Enneagram based. There's a website, wepss.com. If you link that, there's a survey on there that's like 40 minutes long. It's like 10 or 12 bucks, but it's very scientific in the way they did it. They asked the questions multiple different ways to kind of help you figure out which center you might be in. But most importantly, at the end of it, there's a summary of your answers and how you rank in the percentiles. So if you feel like you got your summary wrong, you can see where else you rank higher at, and figure it out from there.
Okay,
that's cool.
Good to know.
And so it's very possible that you could be strong in multiple categories, especially the healthier you are. Like I'm a mind type, and the work I've done over the last few years, I mean, I'm really good at hearing my heart right now, so now I'm working on my gut center, becoming more instinctual, trusting my guts and stuff like that. So I rank high in a lot of categories.
Understood. Because we were sitting there this morning trying to figure out what we are, what we think we lead with. But at the same time, that's an interesting one. I remember when we did the personality test.
The Myers-Briggs.
Yes, Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs.
I don't know why I couldn't remember that. I'm only recently diving into the Enneagram, and really understanding it kind of deeply. So
Mhm.
this is all really great information. I've never heard it put this way, but
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it's really, really
It's really
easy
really
to understand,
Yeah.
and very much so works for my way of thinking. And if I was to guess, I'd guess I was a head type or mind type, you know.
I gotta figure.
I mean, you being an INTP, you probably are.
For sure. You're
For sure.
definitely a head type.
Hey, it is
Yeah.
what it is.
So, and with this theory, how do you help couples with their communication, I guess?
I'm very careful in my answer here.
That's good.
I give a lot of relationship advice, but it's not intended to be relationship advice. It's intended to be interpersonal communication advice. So something you can apply with anyone. So that's my technical answer there. The way that you can use it is there are certain things about the Enneagram that people don't just open up about, and that is that you can high side or low side on any one of those numbers that pops up, right? What I mean by high side and low side, if you are, let's say you're a healthy person and under stress, you take time to yourself, you go get out in nature, you read, you process, and you don't let the things that you're dealing with in this particular relationship affect how you talk to your kids or how you talk to your wife or how you talk to your coworkers. That's a healthier version of it. An unhealthy version would be I often describe it, or I used to describe it as imagine like a buoy in the ocean, right? Some buoys, they go down, they pop right back. But imagine one goes down and it stays down for a little too long, right? So by the time the next thing happens and the next thing happens, it never comes back to the surface. And being unhealthy is a lot like that. Some people just never make it back to the surface. So when we talk about compatibility, I believe that anyone can be compatible as long as they are able to access the healthy mindset that they have, right? Because a lot of the things that attract you to a person, you don't want those things to change ever. That's what you like about them, right? If you get someone who's like, oh, I like the way he do his thing, I'm gonna mess all that up, right? Like that's not a good relationship, right? And so people kind of want to remain themselves, and you don't want to be dating a stick in the mud or someone who can't think for themselves or have their own swag or whatever the case is, right? So I look at compatibility in terms of that, of healthy versus unhealthy. If this person is more likely to go to an unhealthy place every time, and that's not where I want to go personally, then I love you and respectfully, I'm out, you know? Or if they say, well, I just need you to help me get through this. Okay, well, then we can do that. We can get help. There are resources that we can contact. Are you open to getting help? If you're not open to getting help and you just want to be in your hole, I have to decide if that's good enough for me, because clean things get dirty, right? People with healthy mindsets can get brought down very easily.
That's true. That's very true.
Very, very
And
true.
clean things get dirty very easily, and it's usually a lot harder to get clean again. That's real.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear like a personal story from you about how this mindset of head, heart, gut has affected you personally, has shown you something that you didn't know either about yourself or about a situation. I don't know, a story, something that kind of brings us to a personal level.
My mom, my niece, and all of my exes are all heart types, right? And like it's easy for me to exist in my domain. And one day, I was dating a different girl who was very similar. Like as I was learning things, I was like, okay, but she's not saying things nearly as toxic as the last girl, but they're saying the same thing. And so I reflected inward and I was like, okay, what am I doing? Right? If the message is consistent, what am I doing? And then as I began to do that search, I noticed that my mom was saying similar things and that my niece was saying similar things. And I was like, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all this knowledge I've accumulated over the years. And this is where I'm going to tell you something that I have not told anybody else in the world. Okay.
Oh, we're breaking the story, yo. We're breaking the story. You heard it here first. All right, let's go.
You will not hear anybody teach this when they teach the Enneagram ever. There's these things called the holy ideas, right? And each number has a holy idea. And a lot of them teach you traditionally to go for the idea that is for your core. So I'm a type 5, I'm a knowledge and wisdom type, and they tell you to go for that particular holy idea. But as I was looking at all the things that I had learned and looking at the spiritual aspects, I said, well, what if I go for, instead of perfecting myself, I think I need to make a sacrifice. And so I said, what if I perfect the identity of the one that I want to become, which is style 8, right? And so I learned about that holy idea. And that holy idea was actually the opposite, the direct opposite of everything that I prided myself on at my type. The holy idea for style 8 was holy truth. Me being a style 5, I like knowledge, wisdom, details, stuff like that. And so all of that is my ability to try to control my own outcome, right? So I seek and I look for knowledge so that I can try to control my destiny. And to bring things to a nice close here, the holy truth of style 8 was let go of it all. God knows, the universe knows, right? And you don't have to hoard all of that in yourself, and that'll release your anxiety. I started working towards that. And in those relationships, every time I felt like I can't deal with your attitude right now, I can't deal with your emotions right now, I don't have the time, the patience, or the energy. As soon as I felt that, I said, yes, I do. And I surrendered over and over and over. And that was the part that just ripped me to shreds. But in the end, the things that I thought I didn't have, I gained them. And I also learned how to listen and hear people more clear.
Wow.
And I'll never do that again.
Wow, thanks for sharing that.
That was powerful.
That's very powerful.
Because it's similar to kind of how our philosophy is. Right now we're dealing with self-care, and not self-care as a couple. Individual self-care.
Absolutely.
Because if we're only as strong as our weakest link, the best thing we can do is make sure we are individually strong,
right,
so that we tie our strong connection to the strongest connection. It allows us to be able to be the best unit we can.
Right. Yeah.
Best we can for our community, and the best we can for our daughter.
Yeah.
And our family and our home. So what you're explaining to us here gives us an opportunity to kind of, and the people listening, gives them an opportunity to really evaluate what real A, sacrifice looks like, B, what understanding yourself looks like, and gives another window or another avenue onto what self-care can look like.
And accountability.
Yeah.
Really, accountability, looking inward and saying, okay, this is what, like you said, these people are presenting, but what about me is affected?
Yeah. Absolutely. Spot on.
It was very nice to meet you.
For sure.
Absolutely. God bless.
All right.
Bless,
likewise.
appreciate you.
Take care.
So you guys heard it there.
Yeah.
That was a really good conversation,
that's pretty
right?
clear, right?
It was clear. It kind of explained now why you may feel something versus think something versus
from the gut.
Right?
Mix the two. Yeah.
I still am trying to figure out which one I am, honestly.
Yeah.
But
I think. Well, he mentioned that there is a website. We're going to find that and make sure it's linked in the description down below for you guys. We're also going to link his TikTok page. Make sure you will give him a follow. Really clearly a dope brother, and clearly somebody who has something to offer the couples in the world, especially those of us who are trying to make marriage work. Because, as we said, it's work, but it's worth it.
It's worth it. That's right. Big shout out to Mario. Thank you so much for talking with us. And we will see you guys next time.
And remember.
And until then, remember,
we're better
together.